Welcome, everybody, to the second Vice President Forum for Faculty Senate. I'm glad you all could join me today. I'm Madeline Bakken, the chair of the Committee for Campus Governance, and part of my role is to facilitate this meeting today. So we've got our two candidates, Jenny Lauber and Melissa Reed. First, I want to give them a chance to just give themselves a little introduction so we know who we're talking to. Jenny, would you like to start off on that?
Sure. Thanks so much for having us. So as Madeline said, I'm Jenny Lauber. I am an associate professor in the Early Childhood Unified Program, which is part of the Elementary Education, Special Education, and Early Childhood Department in the Teachers College. I've been here at Emporia State since January of 2013, so 7 years, 8 years. And so ESU really is kind of like home. I have a lot of history here. My mom was in the alumni office here. You probably, if you've been around for a while, know Joan. So that's a little bit about who I am. I'm excited to be here and part of this.
Beautiful. Melissa, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everyone. I am Melissa Reed, and I am an associate professor in the Elementary Education, Early Childhood, Special Education Department. There I am an associate professor in reading literacy, among other things. I'm also the director of the Masters of Elementary Education, which is an alternative pathway to teacher licensure for career changers. I started in 2005 in the Jones Institute as the Kansas Reading First coordinator, and I've been in the current department where I serve since 2008, and I too am an ESU alumni.
Beautiful. I'm going to keep you here and have you go ahead and answer our first question. Would you share a little bit about your previous experience in Faculty Senate and other leadership roles you might have held on campus?
Sure. So I currently serve as a senator, and I currently serve as the Academic Affairs Committee chair. And I'm also an ombudsperson in regard to Faculty Senate. I have degrees in education leadership and policy studies. I have dissertation work in instructional coaching, leadership, mentoring, and induction models. I participated in Kansas Leadership Center training, so I kind of have an ear to or eye for leadership roles. As I mentioned, I'm the director of the Master's in Elementary Education degree. That was one of the first, if not the first, new program incentive plans under the president's office. So I led that initiative in organizing a committee, prepared the proposal for the new program incentive plan, including a marketing plan, looking at the sustainability it would need to maintain the program so that it would actually net revenue and not create new expenses. I went through the program approval processes for that through ESU, K-Board, KSDE. I've continued as the director. We're in our third year. We have over 100 students currently in there. Some have taken a leave of absence because of pandemic, but we know they're still there. We have partnerships. I've established partnerships with districts who are wanting to grow their own, people who are place bound and want to be a teacher. They're working in the school and they want that teaching credential. I oversee the accreditation reports and processes through KSDE and CAPE. We have been under a new program stipulation, and we just found out yesterday that we have been moved to approved status through December of 2024, and we have no areas of improvement. So that was pretty exciting news for us. I co-authored and worked on the committee within the partnership of the Kansas Masonic Lodge to bring the Kansas Masonic Literacy Center to the ESU campus a couple of years ago. I've collaborated with the Jones Trust that created the Mobilizing Literacy, which is for the Tri-County region that provides support to school readiness, summer learning attendance, and I served as the liaison to the Osage City School District when that first started. As I mentioned, I was the Reading First coordinator when I first came, which was a collaboration between the Kansas Department of Education, KU, and I worked to create curriculum and find logistics, plan logistics, food to bring teachers in for week-long academies across the state. Through that process, we trained hundreds of teachers over the time that I was there and had that grant. Led and coordinated state reading conferences, which were held at ESU. I always try to bring things to ESU so we can kind of spotlight our facilities and hope to recruit and hook some people in. Co-coordinated last spring Educating for an Empowerment Conference through Kappa Delta Pi, which I'm the advisor for Kappa Delta Pi as well. And that was really cool because we partnered with students to create that conference. So that was a student coordinated conference as well. Kappa Delta Pi is 101 years old. It's one of the oldest organizations we have on the ESU campus. It's an International Honor Society for Educators. And if you've seen the mask trees in your offices on campus, that's Kappa Delta Pi's initiative that we've been working on to do our service virtually this year. I've led statewide book clubs for educators, and then coordinated to bring those authors again to the ESU campus to bring those people in to meet the authors for the book club in which they participated. I work as the Kansas Paraguay Partners on the board of directors, which promotes teacher exchange programs between Kansas and Paraguay, which we're currently on a little bit of a hold there. So we're currently redirecting and leading efforts to redirect resources to Paraguay with the money that we would normally use to bring them here. I've also coordinated a program through there to allow Paraguayan teachers to get their master's degree at Emporia State University. I've served as a moderator for the Governor's Literacy Summit. My grounding is in literacy, so I tend to work there. I serve on numerous state, national, international boards. Typically, I take a leadership role there, hold an office, the same on campus. I've been a co-editor of the Kansas Journal of Reading. I serve on an editorial board for a national journal. Trying to think, that's quite a bit of what I do. I also, another thing that I think that might be of interest is I do a lot of high impact learning on the campus. I lead a lot of those. I really work with our education, pre-education students to see the side of education that is the actual professional career. I mean, we do an excellent job of doing coursework and pedagogy, but I really want them to see the real life. So I try to get some funding to take the students out to other school settings so they can see what charter schools look like. I've taken them to Brown versus Board so they can have courageous conversations about race. I've brought speakers in, taken them to school board meetings, taken them to the legislature because education is very driven by legislative action. So I want them to see where the decisions are being made. So I also take them out into the community to do work. That's my connection to the community. So when we're not in a pandemic, I try to be in a school at least once a week. And I usually have students with me and we're doing some sort of project. So we had an after school book club at the middle school for a while. I do a project at Chase County Elementary School with their project-based learning. And in fact, last week, I actually took 10 pre-service teachers virtually there to judge a science fair. So I'm trying to keep our students very grounded in the authentic side of education. And I think that is a leadership role as well in the department where I serve.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Jenny, would you tell us a little bit about your previous experience in Faculty Senate or other leadership roles you've held on campus?
Absolutely. So I was a faculty senator from 2015 to 2017 and also served on the Academic Affairs Committee. So I was able to participate in Faculty Senate that way and have some experience with Faculty Senate. I have had quite a bit of diverse experience when it comes to some leadership roles. I am currently the program director for the Early Childhood Unified Master's Program. I've held that role for the last 3 years. We've actually transitioned our Early Childhood Unified Program from a 36 credit hour program to 33 hours. Just with everything going on, we wanted to be competitive with the other universities around. And so we were able to muddle through all those curricular changes and get our program down to 33 hours. I have also been the liaison between our Early Childhood Unified Program and the Center for Early Childhood Education here on campus, the Child Care Center on campus over in Butcher. I had the opportunity during the 2017-2018 academic year to take a year leave of absence from my professor position to be the interim director over at CECE, where I was able to learn all sorts of administrative roles, had to do with Kansas Department of Health and Environment. We were responsible for getting the license up and going and making sure that we continued with it. We were part of the child and adult food care program. So we had lots of paperwork that we had to do for it and make sure that we got all the reports written and all of the information to them that they needed. There were approximately 40 to 45 student employees that we had at the center during that time as well. It is one of the largest student employee areas that we have here on campus. So I was responsible for working with all of the student employees. Majority of those were elementary education, but we definitely had some that were from nursing or secondary education, had some art students, so definitely across campus. I have served on the Kansas Masonic Literacy Center Board of Directors since 2019, so I've been able to be a part of that. One of my colleagues, Melissa Gerleman, and I have helped students to create an RSO, the Trauma Informed Educators. RSO is a group that we really look at how trauma impacts children in education. We work with pre-service teachers. We work with students in psychology, students in counseling. We actually have a really nice trauma-informed education organization going with it. We actually received a high impact learning grant, and we're doing, for the next 8 Wednesdays, we're doing high impact learning workshops for the students. Through a grant, we've brought in ESDAC, and they are going to do a lot of presenting for our students so that when they go out into the schools, they've got as much information as possible when they're out there in their first year. I have also been on the campus campaign committee since 2008, supporting the university through donations and funding and working on the campus campaign committee. So.
Well, busy ladies, thank you so much. Annie, I'm going to keep you here. Could you let us know why you're pursuing this particular role in Faculty Senate? It's one thing to serve your 2 years, it's another to sign on for 4 and eventual presidency of the Faculty Senate. So what brought you to that decision?
Sure. So my time at CECE in that leadership role, I really saw a lot with change and how we can work collaboratively together and work for the better programs, the better placements for student employees. It really kind of gave me a passion and a drive to look at how can I do that on a broader level. So in the recent year, really the last year and a half, we've had so many changes between the new KBOR policy that has been approved recently. The budget, budget has been an issue for a while, but we are looking at one of the biggest budget cuts coming the next 2 years. Continuing forward with diversity and inclusion, all in this era of the COVID pandemic, hopefully coming out of that and looking at what is that going to be like. I really just have this passion and drive to to think collaboratively. It's really going to take the entire community of Emporia State to be successful in moving through all of this and coming out on the other side successfully. So I really want to bring in my leadership abilities and see what we can do in a very collaborative, inclusive format for the best possible outcome for students, for faculty, for staff, and just for ESU in general.
Thank you. Melissa, why are you pursuing this particular role in Faculty Senate?
So I've been an educator for 36 years, and in my experiences as an ESU student, an alumni, a public educator, an employee of ESU for the last 15 years, I've witnessed ups and downs related to the trends in education over the years. And I know we just celebrated our 158th anniversary, last week. So I know that our university is resilient. Our history started as a Kansas State normal school to prepare educators. And over that 158 years, we've gone through so many changes, including name changes. A name change occurred just shortly before I became a student here. We've never lost our identity through those changes as an institution that truly cares about students. And I also believe about the faculty who teach here, which I think they're very closely connected. So through my whole life of being really an educator, I don't see it as a job. It's just really part of my identity as who I am. If you talk to my children, they would tell you their whole life has been an education field trip, So I feel that I've developed this skill set and awareness that supports rights of faculty while also staying aware of the needs that students have and how that's kind of a chain reaction, one leading to the other. They're very closely entwined. I understand, I feel that, and I'm very aware that the ups and downs are brought on by growth cycles, but also working in a career that's very highly impacted by legislative actions and state and federal funding. So I stay very aware of those trends, attend state school board meetings, K-Board legislation, and read those reports and minutes and so forth. So I feel like in serving in the role of a faculty senate, I can use those skills to advocate for faculty. My love for learning and the awareness of the current trends in education could be used to support the needs of faculty and students as we continue through the growth cycles and the ups and downs that we are encountering for a number of the reasons that we're currently aware of. So.
Very good, thank you. I'm going to keep you here for a moment and ask you, how do you view the role of Faculty Senate in the ESU community? And how do you see the function of the president within that context?
So I see the role of the Faculty Senate as the voice or the advocacy for the morale and the overall well-being, or I guess health of the faculty. We have to keep the faculty healthy and cared for to ultimately care for our students. The Senate, I believe, oversees the policy and makes adjustments as needed as a collective group. They represent departments, programs, faculty, and the whole campus. We have representatives from everywhere who can bring that voice to the table when we meet. When the faculty feels supported, they better attend to the needs of the students, which ultimately affects retention and recruitment for both students and faculty. And collaboratively, we can face the storms, such as the pandemic and, K-Board's decisions and budget cuts. The university, I believe, is a larger context comprised of many of those smaller working parts. Kind of think of it as a machine with a lot of cogs in motion at all times. And I believe the president's role is to represent the faculty while coordinating with all of those different cogs, so that we're all moving together as a machine. And we know we have shared governance at the university. So recognizing the strengths of those individual parts and then working to support the areas of need. I think within that context, the role of the president is one of leadership, but also facilitation. A liaison, an advocate to hear and represent the voice of faculty, acting as a liaison to open and or connect lines of communication between those various entities or cogs so that we work together as a well-performing university.
Thank you. Jenny, how do you view the role of the Faculty Senate in the ESU community, and how do you view the Faculty Senate president within that context?
So I completely agree with Melissa. I think that when it comes to the role of Faculty Senate, Faculty Senate truly is that representative of the entire faculty. Here at Emporia State and other institutes of higher education, we are here for the students. So, I think our first role in Faculty Senate is how do we look at those policies and how do we look at those pieces for faculty in particular to best support our students when it comes to their learning, when it comes to their needs, especially with undergraduates. They're coming, it's the first time they've lived on their own. It's the first time they've kind of made those own career choices, things that they're going to do. So I really think that faculty and supporting students is going to be one of the biggest things that we need to do. So I think Faculty Senate is that piece there that supports the faculty in putting those pieces in place. When it comes to a lot of our graduate students, so many of those programs are online. So it's going to be how do we best support faculty in a way that they can meet the needs of those students as well. And definitely the policies that we look at and the policies that we put in place are really those foundational pieces that we need to help support that faculty. So when it comes to Faculty Senate and the president, I think really because of that shared governance piece, a big portion of that is that whole collaborative model. We're here to support students. We're here to give them the best education and the highest education that we can probably give them or potentially give them. And in order to be able to do that, we still have to have the support of USS, of unclassified staff. And so we would need to have all of that in one inclusive area, which is why Emporia State has been so successful with the shared governance piece, is we've been able to bring what we can from Faculty Senate and from the faculty and representing the faculty to those pieces, and to be able really to present a united front through for the faculty through the president in those different shared governance meetings and trying to get the policies where they need to be to support us.
I'm on mute. There we go. All right. Are there any initiatives in particular that you plan to pursue if you are elected? Let's give you a break from Chat and Jenny, and we'll go to Miss Melissa.
Okay. Well, first off, I believe we have a lot of good initiatives currently in place at Emporia State. And as a new leader stepping in, I'm not really sure the role would be to just completely disregard all of those initiatives, but to pick them up and take them forward to the best of my ability to contribute what I can to move them forward. For example, I've been involved with the DEI initiatives on campus, and I would want to continue to grow that initiative and move forward with that with skills that I have. During the pandemic, I earned a DEI certificate. So I would like to, contribute those skills to moving that initiative forward. We kind of know what we need to do. We know we need to look for ways to grow our student population. So I would want to pick those initiatives up and determine what could be added to that body of knowledge to advance that growth. What are students looking for? What do we need to do to move forward there? Facing ongoing budget cuts that are, they're threats waged against the academic tenure in place right now. So finding ways to support faculty morale and consider ways to put faculty anxiety at ease so we can ensure that they're taking care of students. I mean, if our faculty are all petrified they're going to lose their job, they lose sight of students. So how do we, what kinds of initiatives can we put in place to alleviate that stress and anxiety? How can we seek ways to value and utilize all the various skill sets which we have on our campus? How do we bring those skill sets together and use them to our advantage to build? I always think about building a house, bring the plumbers and electricians and roofers together so we can build a really strong structure. Staying aware of trends that are on the horizon and attempt to stay ahead of them as much as possible. Be very proactive in those conversations, start early. Obviously, we know when we see a trend on the horizon, it's probably going to get to us at some level at some time. So I'm very much about staying ahead of that. I think that's my years experience of being a single parent, prepare for anything. I guess my Girl Scout years too, be prepared for the challenges that lie ahead. And being able to do that is staying aware and watching where those are when they're in those beginning stages of being formulated. So I just think kind of continuing on and being on the lookout for where new initiatives would need to start to stay ahead of potential issues.
Jenny, do you have any initiatives that you would plan to pursue if you were elected?
So if I'm elected, I agree that we need to definitely look at the initiatives that are in place, and we need to continue with those. DEI is so important. Looking at staff morale and faculty morale and student morale, and how do we support all of that through a collaborative way so that we can continue those initiatives. An initiative that I would probably want to continue with is the OER initiative. One of the ways I think we can help support multiple areas would be supporting OER. There are, the Craig grants are out there, and being able to use those funds to help support resources and finding resources or creating resources, then ultimately helps students because it reduces the cost for them, because they have those open educational resources versus having to buy another textbook. So I think OER is a big initiative that I would like to see continue in the future. I also think we truly are in a new era when it comes to not just higher education, but education in general. But really, how do we then support faculty when it comes to more of the online learning? We had to, quickly move all of our classes that were face-to-face to that online piece. Not everybody was prepared. We've done a really good job, I feel, of helping and supporting. But are there other initiatives out there that we can have or we can put in place to really support the faculty in case something like this happens again, or if we decide we want to offer more hybrid courses or more online courses. So I think technology is going to be a big piece in the future for Emporia State.
I think you're psychic, because my next question is about what discoveries have we made or have you discovered in the last year, given the pandemic, that has changed the way you either present your classes, conduct meetings, etc., that you feel like, yeah, that was a good thing to learn. I'm going to take that forward into my continued practice. And I'll give you guys the choice. Jenny, do you want to keep talking, or we want Melissa take the floor?
I could go this time. That's fine. I think so let me back up. Early Childhood Unified is a master's program that's fully online. So I didn't have a whole lot of change that I had to put in place for those classes. I also co-teach the undergraduate trauma educators class, so I learned many things between all of that. One, I learned that my students that were in the online courses really started to reach out to me more. I always offered, we can have a Zoom meeting, we can have a phone conference, and I post videos and do some lectures for them online, but they really started reaching out to me more. I think as they got more comfortable with technology, they felt more comfortable with reaching out and really trying to connect with me, which was a wonderful thing. I would love to see how can we continue that? What's the research show as far as how do we take that information and move to the next step and keep that open communication as much as possible. I also learned we took our face-to-face trauma educators class and moved it online. So one of the things that we ended up doing was we were able to create almost this hybrid piece where if we have students that need to have the accommodation of Zooming in, we now take all of our lectures for that class. We record them. We put on Zoom. We also record it so then we can put it on Canvas so that they have it to refer back to when they're doing any of the homework, the out of class assignments, any of those things, which has been extremely successful. So I think that would be one of the biggest areas that I think we need to continue to develop. I know that there are some issues that I've had and some of the others in education have had with trying to get into schools or agencies to do supervision evaluations. So continuing to work, I'm part of the Committee on Advanced Programs, and we really kind of talked about the Go React app and platform to be able to go into schools and do a virtual supervised visit without then bringing in extra germs, bringing in extra people, anything like that. So continuing to explore those options to see what we can do for the university to help facilitate that.
Thank you. Melissa, what have you discovered in the last year of COVID that you would like to take forward in your work?
Sure. So I've been an online instructor for a long time. So the actual technology and online transition wasn't, the first obstacle I had, but my youngest son moved out about 2 or 3 months before the pandemic hit. So I was learning to adjust to an empty nest when the pandemic hit and isolated the world. And I believe I had skills in teaching online, but I now were teaching teachers who were trying to adjust to this isolated world and who were not as adept at using technology. And so I moved into kind of this coaching role of supporting and helping them move through and balance some of those skills that were needed in this new isolated world, because our public schools were not as ready for some of the technology as we were, in our department in education. So this forced me to rethink work-life balance. These scenarios did. So, I took on some hobbies back in my personal life that I had given up as a parent. So, learning to propagate plants and learning to cook for one and rediscovering hobbies. And in doing that, I use my virtual office hours not only to answer course questions, but we often go into kind of some therapy sessions, that work-life balance, what are you learning? What are you doing? How can I support you? What do you need in the role that's even outside of my class? What can I do to help you? I'm typically reading 3 or 4 books at one time, so they always want to know what I'm reading. I'm currently reading, I've also picked up some webinar and podcast habits, which I appreciate as well. I currently am reading a book called Think Again by Adam Grant, and it's a new book that's just been released. And if you don't know Adam Grant, he's an organizational psychologist. And so I believe there was some information there that might help me through this process of supporting the teachers out in the field who are also in my classes. He believes that keeping an open mind is a teachable skill. And so I'm working with, those teachers to keep an open mind. This too will pass. We can do this. To rethink opinions and important decisions. He contends that we live in a rapidly changing world. Yes, we do. And there's a set of cognitive skills that might be more important even than intelligence itself, and that's the ability to rethink and unlearn. And I've believed in unlearning and relearning my whole life, so that kind of struck me. He states that many of us favor comfort and conviction over discomfort or doubt, and we listen to opinions that make us feel good instead of those that make us think hard. And we're living in a pandemic where we're having to think really hard. We see disagreement as our threat to egos sometimes, rather than a way to gravitate towards challenges and move through the process. So I'm kind of having those conversations in those virtual office hours that I hold twice a week with my graduate students to help nurture them through this shifting process. So I will take forward the challenge to lean into discomfort, into the unknown. When it's hard, I want to participate in it. I want to conduct meetings that provide safe opportunities for people to express and allow them room to relearn and regrow and rethink without a threat to those egos that he mentions in his book. I believe that this is what's going to be needed to move us through this transition we're in and future transitions down the road if we can adopt that mindset. I guess the thinking also, I have a favorite quote that relates to literacy that I often open my courses with, and I kind of went back to that thinking. The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And that's an Alvin Toffler quote. So I guess I'm taking away leaning into discomfort and being that safe person or place for students to unlearn and relearn and rethink what's happening to them in this ever-changing world.
It has been an interesting year. Lots and lots of change. Thank you so much. Just a couple of last ones. I would say we've discussed the budget issues and the recent K-Board decision. Aside from that, what would you say were the top 3 challenges facing ESU right now?
Do you want me to go first?
Can we get either Jenny or Melissa on the screen, please?
Are we back?
I think we are. Great, thank you. Jenny, it looks like you're first.
Okay. Sorry, it locked. Can you just one more time? I want to make sure I answer everything with
Absolutely.
challenges.
I would, aside from the budget issues and the K-Board decision, what would you say are the top 3 challenges facing the university right now? And it wasn't on the question, but I'm just going to throw in what are some solutions? I don't really like the idea of presenting challenges without presenting some solutions. So I'm going to challenge you to do that.
Okay. All right. So I think some of the biggest challenges we're going to have, morale across campus, I think, is going to be a big challenge that we have. There's just a lot that's been going on in the last year. People are not nearly as social as they've been, and we are social creatures. So that's something that's been very challenging. So I think as we move forward into the future, how do we provide some of those opportunities that allow faculty to integrate with staff and students and other faculty? Do we build in certain activities that are more virtual? I know some places have done a little bit of that. Do we really work on trying to do more of that? But what do we need to do? I think that's going to have to start probably with when it comes to faculty, with the faculty specifically. So do we need to look at maybe a questionnaire on what are some thoughts that they have on how to help with morale and what we can do with that? I think as we come out of the pandemic, we're going to have some challenges. Honestly, I think I worry most about what is the health situation going to be. I kind of go back and forth because I think we're so much more aware now of how we can protect others. So are we going to be looking at, do we need to continue with masks, or is that something we're not going to have any longer? What are our immune systems going to be like? Because we have isolated so much and we're not exposing ourselves to different sorts of illnesses and viruses and all of those different pieces. So are we going to be continuing with maybe a hybrid model, because we have some people who are going to have compromised immune system, so we need to look at more accommodations. So I think something we really need to think about is how do we work through those pieces and prepare for those pieces, because I think we may see more accommodations where some are going to be attending virtually. So I think really with that, we're just going to have to start working, with IT, with the student support services to see what is it we can do. I also think we need to look at that at the faculty level. I think we're going to have to be concerned with what accommodations do faculty possibly need. Are they going to need to be able to teach online? So I think those are two of the big things. I think the third thing is continuing to move forward with diversity, inclusion, and equity. We really have made some great gains. So how do we continue that forward momentum, even though we've had to kind of not really pause it, but not make as much forward gain because we've had to focus so much more on the pandemic, or so much more on the KBOR policy, or so much more on the budget issues. We still want to make sure we're fostering that inclusive environment and that collaborative environment. So I would say those are going to be three of our biggest challenges besides budget and KBOR policy.
Thank you. Melissa, what's your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the biggest challenges we're facing right now?
Right. And I just want to touch on budget just quickly, because I started as a faculty member in 2008, and I'm of the, I guess, generation at the university who has always been involved in budget cuts. I truly have never actually experienced merit pay. I don't even really, I mean, they talk of it, but I don't know what it is. So I guess what I'm saying there is this has been a constant in motion. So it's something that we address each year, and just really thinking about how do we develop a sustainable model. I think about my work with the MSL Ed program, and it's a very sustainable model that's very embedded into the resources we already had. So kind of thinking at the budget cuts from that perspective. For me, a big thing is retention and recruitment, conducting research and surveys to understand what the next generation of college students are looking for. So I was a first gen student. My family sacrificed to send me to school because they didn't have those opportunities. And so I'm kind of that mindset. Education opened all the doors for me, and it was the road to my successes. I have children who are 10 years apart. My daughter is a millennial. She does not have that same perspective. She's of the generation that says, why do I come back and get a graduate degree? I can't do anything with what I have, and my debt is just growing. I've got these loan payments, and you hear the millennials, really talking on the political scene about canceling some of the loan debt, and jobs that pay for the education they have. So there's a different, listening to her voice and hearing that. I also have a Gen Z, and my Gen Z has a whole different look at the world. My Gen Z has no memory of a world before his smartphone. Technology's always been in his life. He participated in a progressive charter school. He's very critical thinking, problem solving, as opposed to my millennial, who was a No Child Left Behind product. Therefore, he can't justify payoffs, and he also likes things in very tight sound bites, and very progressive way of learning. He learns very differently. I've kind of watched him. My colleagues joke with me that I probably should have done a Piaget study of my 10-year growth there between my children, because they operate and think very differently because of the experiences they've had. He lives in a world of games. He lives in a world of social media influencers who have become millionaires because of YouTube videos. So how do we compete with that? How do we bring those people in? As a Kansas educator, I also know that our Kansas education system is in a redesign. So I've attended and visited with our state commissioner, Randy Watson. He's doing his own research on, what kind of 21st century skills are needed for kids to be successful. He has done all kinds of research about what kinds of education needs to be done to keep kids in Kansas to do the jobs we have here. And I think we need to look at that data and do those surveys and think about how are we going to meet those kids that start to graduate from these Kansas redesign schools? How will we meet them, and what will we have at ESU that brings them program here and values higher education? How do we go back to, you know, the philosophy my parents had for me as a gen ed, that education opens all the doors for you? So really thinking about how to make that connection, exploring the higher education models that are out there that are attracting, you know, maybe not becoming them, but what can we, you know, Harry Wong is an education theorist that says you still, you know, take those ideas and make them your own. So how can we do that? You know, in mentioning the history of ESU, we've recreated ourselves many times. And I think we're in a moment where we are going to have to proactively seek a recreation to retain and recruit students, both at the graduate level, who may be the millennials, or even, you know, some first gens, and also those new coming out of high school Gen Zs that have a whole different way of looking at the world. But really developing a message that there's still a value in being an educated citizen in the world. I will also go back to the diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think we're at a critical moment with that. I've been on a personal learning journey there for the last 5 or 6 years with my colleague, really engrossing myself in learning and understanding the roots there. I recently watched a webinar that was shared with me on the topic of gifted education and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the speaker mentioned adding a B for belonging. And I think if we think about recruitment and retention, students have to feel like they belong here. So hearing the various voices and perspectives from all the intersections of identity, and I mean, that is very broad. Every perception and perspective that someone brings has to be honored and heard. Higher education should be a place where we have these, you know, conversations of discourse where people don't feel threatened and they feel valued in what they have to say. We need to invest in options that facilitate these conversations, that value those strengths and maximize inclusion and a feeling of belonging, and above all, safety for being able to express those things. Understanding cultural values. I work quite a bit with international students and have international students in the education program who have shared with me that attending college changes the family dynamics of their culture. So what can we do at the college level to help support and understand what happens for them in their personal cultural life that we could support and be part of to help understand what coming to college means for their culture. Equity and inclusion means that we're redistributing opportunities at the most institutional basic level structurally. And I know we're in the process because of the committees that I serve on, but continuing to actively seek policies and procedures that perpetuate oppression or bias, continually reviewing, being in a position where when someone brings it to your attention that you can facilitate the conversation even on their behalf, or advocate that we move those institutional things, update, change, or revise as needed to make sure that everyone feels like they belong here.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to give a reminder. I don't know, maybe not, maybe I didn't say it at the beginning. We do have a link as well for people to submit questions, and this is your call to action. Give us some questions to add to what we're already discussing. I would wanted to switch gears again a little bit to talk about how you engage with people, members of the faculty who aren't directly involved in the Senate. This is my 4th year, and I think it's an interesting little world that we get into once we're on Faculty Senate. And how would you best engage with people who are not in that little bubble?
Would you like to start with me? Okay. So I'm going to go back to my middle school days for a second and start there, because as a middle school teacher, there's kind of these individual silos, much like we kind of see on campus. You know, sometimes I get asked, do you know so-and-so over? And it's like, well, not always, because we are kind of in these bubbles, you know, that we teach in, much like in a secondary setting. So one of the first courses I was asked to teach when I came here was the secondary literacy course. And I started out by teaching that course by visiting all of the methods courses from the different content disciplines who were going to be in my class. So I visited the music methods, I visited the physical education methods, and so forth. So I could see where they were coming from and understand. Plus I wanted them to see me and I wanted to sit alongside of them as a learner. I wanted them to see their teacher as a learner. So I would go about using that same type of process. I'm a leader, but I'm going to sit with you too to learn and understand, where you're coming from. So establishing an effective line of communication that's timely and predictable, a routine that's either an email or some sort of communication that faculty know on this date they're going to hear, this message. Solicit ideas on how senators who might better, they represent their faculty, but how they might better be served as a conduit back to those faculty members who are not directly connected to the Senate. We've been using surveys and suggestion boxes, continue to use those. I think that gives us good feedback, but also really look for ways to act on that so the faculty can say, it's a good thing to give my voice instead of there's no need to say anything, nobody listens to it anyway, perpetuating or flipping that back the other way. Being visible on campus, I think, is very important. I think it would be very important as the faculty Senate president to be seen at events and for people to know who I am when they see me. Possibly invite faculty members to moments with the president, or some way that we could have some informal talk so that I could hear the faculty concerns who are not senators. I think too, going back to my coaching and mentoring background and my leadership background, opening doors to possibilities of maybe attending faculty meetings in different departments so I can hear and get to know faculty and see their work. I'm pretty active on campus when we're not in a pandemic. I like to go to senior recitals and senior shows in the art department. And if I have an athlete in my class, I try to go to at least one of their games so they know I'm there. And I always send that email follow-up. So kind of that same philosophy, seeing what the work is that our faculty do on campus. We have a lot of faculty doing awesome things and not only looking for how to be their voice and liaison, but I guess maybe selfishly looking for partners, to partner with in my own research and thinking moving forward, who's doing things that are interests of mine, as well as maybe I know a colleague of mine who has an interest in that, and making those connections across campus so we really get to know one another. I do believe those kinds of connections will also help support the morale and the mental stress on campus as well. So.
Thank you. Jenny, how would you reach out to non-senators to involve them in Faculty Senate?
So I believe that transparency is one of the key factors when it comes to any sort of leadership role. I really appreciate that past faculty Senate presidents have, sent out the agendas, sent out the minutes, sent out the information. That way there can be those discussions. I think continuing that is going to be a very important piece of being president of Faculty Senate. Going out and really trying to listen to the faculty and what their needs and their wants are, and really keeping on top of what those current trends are, what the current issues are, what the current topics are, and really try and help pinpoint, is this going to be from this college? Is this going to be from this college? Do I need to go and talk to those faculties? Do I need to be a part of that? What can I do to help support them? I truly believe that the role of the president of Faculty Senate is to be that leader that takes all of the information from everybody across campus, and especially those senators, and move forward with the faculty and the university so that we can be as strong as possible. So, if we need to look at potential town halls that need to occur, if we need to look at potential questionnaires that need to occur, but really kind of reaching out and putting my hands out into all of those different areas and really trying to be that support piece for the university and for faculty. I really do believe we're kind of on that edge of a very new time and a new look to what higher education is going to be. So really taking that first step in that collaborative way that really links faculty with students, with USS, with all of the support staff and all of the unclassified staff with everybody across campus. It's going to take all of us together to really move the university forward, and continue on this good path that we've started. So really just getting myself out there is going to be the biggest, and being transparent.
Very good. Thank you so much. I'm checking our document again. It doesn't look like we have any other questions coming in. That's the end of my list. Melissa, Jenny, how do you have any sort of closing statement that you'd want to make? You've shared a lot with us in the last hour or so. Is there anything else that maybe I didn't touch on that you felt needed to be discussed? Jen, you want to go for it? Is there anything? No is an acceptable answer. We've covered a lot of ground.
Okay, Melissa, I can go if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. So I think for me, the only thing that I would want to end this with is that I'm a very open person. I'm committed to honesty and trying to move things forward. Do we need to look at different types of funding to help support the budget? Do we need to look at faculty morale, and how do we support it within the situations that we currently have? I know that not only faculty, staff as well, but really the faculty, those of us with tenure, were really kind of concerned, what does this KBOR policy mean? I can't give Sandy enough kudos with the time and effort that she spent immediately getting all of the faculty together, and then taking that shared document from faculty and really working with shared governance on campus, and working with the exec committee to really make sure that the faculty were heard with all the changes that were approved through KBOR and are coming. So I think for me, I just want that same kind of transparency and that same kind of support for all faculty. So if anybody were to have questions, they would feel very comfortable coming to me.
Very good. Jenny, thank you. Melissa, any final words that you'd like to share?
Well, I would just start by saying I appreciate the opportunity to have the forum today so that faculty can hear my thoughts and ideas and hear my voice, and have information to make a decision about their leader going forward. I'm just a very progressive thinker, an innovative thinker. I rely on science and knowledge and research. I look for answers under every rock and crevice and corner that it could be looked for. I like to listen. I like to collaborate. I like to rely on the skills that people have which I do not have. For example, with finance, that would be something that would require relying on experts to help support that position. So really putting the right people on the bus to have a team that can move forward. I don't believe I can do it alone. I believe that it will take the collaboration and the many skills of all the faculty on campus as a joined unit, and listening to their needs and doing what I can to advocate and work as a liaison and a representative to facilitate that voice on campus.
Very good. Thank you so much. Jenny Leveler, Melissa Reed, your candidates for second vice president of the Faculty Senate. I want to thank you guys for your time and for your forthcoming opinions. I really enjoyed learning a little bit more about you personally. That was just fun for me. There's kudos to my job or benefits. So I also want to give a shout to the IT team who helped set up this virtual time together. Speaking of which, that is definitely beyond my skill set. So I wanted to say thank you for that. And just remind people who are viewing now that this will be recorded or is being recorded. It will be available later. The link for that will be sent out as soon as it is ready to all of the faculty and also through Hornet announcements. As far as voting goes, voting should open by the end of this week. You will see a link that is coming either in Hornet announcements. It will also come as an email from Sandy Valenti, your faculty president currently. So I think that's all I have to say. And I want to thank you guys so much for your time again, and have a good rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.